My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
The sound of praise for your Sunday morning.
The only one who could ever teach me.
Introducing Reverend A.R. Bernard of the Christian Cultural Center.
Was the son of a preacher man.
And Rabbi Joseph Potasnik of Religion on the Line.
The only one who could ever teach me.
Now, on Talk Radio 77 WABC, here's the Rev and the Rabbi, where faith matters.
Good morning, I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
Reverend, very soon, streets of New York will be fully congested. The UN is coming to town. The General Assembly. And as I've said many times, God created Idaho for the UN General Assembly to come into town, not New York City. You can't move.
Well, I'll tell you what happened. On the GPS, it's already saying, on the GPS, you are entering the United Nations General Assembly area. Prepare for delays.
Well, you know the word delay. That you're delayed on the outside, and if you're inside the UN, there's delays there.
There's delays in there too.
Accomplish anything. I don't. By the way, why can't they do it on Zoom?
Yeah.
We did it on Zoom for a long time. Do it that way. I want to talk to you about something that is very, very troubling. You pick up the paper, and you read about all of the different allegations being made against public officials. And we have, a strong statement that you're innocent until proven guilty. Although with the IRS, you're guilty
until proven innocent.
Of
course.
But a lot of reputations are hurt, very impactfully. And people start looking at you through a different light when there is an allegation made about you without the final decision.
Yeah. And see, in our faith tradition, we are negative by nature. So we gravitate to the negative. And when the positive does come out, we're so tainted by the negative experience. It's difficult for us to embrace the positive. It's unfortunate. Conspiracies. We are driven in our society by conspiracies. So we think in terms of, well, it could be true. I was having a conversation the other day with someone, and I said, politically, and this is both sides. We make claims that are unsubstantiated, yet possible. Mm-hmm. So the public takes a possibility and treats it as a fact.
Yeah.
And that's a big problem in our society. Exactly.
The unsubstantiated becomes
substantiated because it's possible. Not because it's proven, but because it's possible.
In Jewish tradition, we have, in Hebrew, what's called a cheskat kashrut, that you're deemed to be kosher, and kosher means not just the food, but your behavior is kosher until you're found to be non-kosher. But you're it's that presumption.
The presumption of innocence.
Right.
Yeah.
It's rooted in our religious tradition, and yet it means so little to so many in the public opinion, the arena of public opinion.
And it makes it difficult because both of our faith traditions are about redemption.
Yeah.
Right? And it makes it difficult to believe that someone has been redeemed if they have a negative track record. It's difficult to say, well, they've changed. We're saying, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Let me give it some time. And how much time do you give it before you believe someone has actually changed their ways?
And when someone has been found innocent, that story does not get the attention of when the person has been suspected of some wrongdoing.
Yeah. The headline is out front, and the retraction is in the classified or the obituary section.
Well, we Jews are approaching the new year, and it's all about beginning again, and the fact that we try to begin with a tabula rasa, that clean slate. But some people don't give you that chance.
No, until it comes to them.
Yeah.
And when they find themselves in a situation where they're begging for the same grace that they refuse to give to others, it hits home. Yeah.
You and I have, over the years, been involved in people who have been subjected to this kind of attack, and we still believed in them. And in many cases, we were proven right, that they were innocent.
Yeah.
And they went through hell, right? I mean, just imagine you appear on the front pages of papers and day after day, and how do you carry on when it's not, it's not true, right? And the other way, when you do know it's true.
Especially as elected officials. I think the elected officials have a target on their back.
Yeah.
And if someone wants what they have, or that elected official is in the way of their agenda, they will bring accusations or support and endorse accusations against that individividual.
Maybe that's why we're not attracting always some of the
quality of people. Yeah.
We have a very, very special individual coming on that I've known for some time, and you'll have a chance to get to know him as well. He's the Chancellor of City University of New York, Félix Matos Rodríguez.
Yeah, so stay tuned. We'll be right back right here on 77 WABC for more of the Rev
and the Rabbi.
Where faith matters. The Rev and the Rabbi. Talk Radio 77 WABC.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Patassi.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
Reverend, I've been privileged to know the Chancellor of City University for some 3 years. He's the 8th Chancellor in the history of the university. And one of the things I admire about him is he's very approachable. You have a question, you can talk directly to him, and he gives you a direct answer. And I think that's a great criterion of leadership. So we're honored to have with us Félix Matos Rodríguez, the Chancellor of CUNY.
The honor is mine, and thank you for having me in your show. Long time admirer of what you both have done individually and collectively, and thank you for creating this space of conversation, which is so important in the city.
Especially at times like this.
There are so many challenges that you confront, and we'll address some of them, and then we'll have to have you back. Talk about CUNY, what's the size of it? I don't think people realize how extensive it is.
Well, we have 25 campuses, so we have a presence in each borough of our beloved city. We have around 250,000 students in our degree programs, and then we have another 250,000 students who are pursuing what we call continuing education programs. So it's a large community, 40,000 employees, and our students represent the phenomenal diversity that our city has. They have all that intelligence, all that greed, all those aspirations. What they don't have at times is maybe the financial resources to pursue a college education, and there's nobody better in the business than CUNY for doing that. At a time when everybody's talking about college debt, about 70% of our students graduate without any debt when they finish college, which allows them to buy a house, to pursue advanced degrees. And with the generous aid from the state of New York and the federal dollars, about another 70% of our students actually go to school tuition free. So we're very proud of our access. We're very proud of reflecting New York, and our students stay in New York. If you go to a hospital, half of the new nurses coming into the hospital system in New York come from CUNY, about 40% of the new teachers. So we are part of the backbone of this city, and I'm honored and humbled to be the chancellor of this great institution.
I remember Mayor Ed Koch, who was a graduate of CUNY, would say it's the poor person's Harvard. Now, I don't know if he would use Harvard as the reference today, but he certainly was very proud of being a graduate.
But what's the caliber of students? And I know you have to be careful with this answer. What's the caliber of students that's coming in to the CUNY system today as compared to before?
I mean, I think that we have always captured the best talent here in New York, and sometimes that talent is very college ready, but sometimes the best of that talent needs additional work to be ready, right? It could be sometimes someone that is either coming from a foreign country and has language issues, right, or is a second generation individual. Sometimes there's additional work that they need to do in basic elements like math. But our job is to we have a place for those who are ready and have gone through high school and are ready to do college work immediately. And we have some of the best students. Think of our Macaulay Honor students in the program. And then we have some students who need additional help. And we are here to provide that help. And what matters is that at the end of that journey, that they're ready to join the New York City workforce, and nobody does a better job than we do for that.
Right. Chancellor, I talk to you now as a rabbi, as a proud Jew. I don't have to tell you about the toxic climate on a number of campuses, the anti-Semitism that pervades too many places. What can you say as a chancellor to a Jewish student, to a Jewish parent, who's saying maybe CUNY is the place, but what I read in the papers, the demonstrations, what I've heard said by some of the commencement speakers, it may not be the place?
Well, I'll say a number of things. First, there's a long history with the Jewish community and the City University of New York. And it's a history that I proudly, preserve and cherish. And as you know, Rabbi, at a time when Jewish students were not accepted at other colleges and universities across the country, the doors of CUNY were open for them. And we have a long history also of incredible faculty that and staff that have been through our campuses, right? So very, very proud of that tradition. Today, CUNY embodies what's going on in New York with all the great things that means, and then the not so great things that can entail. And in this case, this epidemic of hate, and in particularly anti-Semitism, is something that unfortunately our campuses are not immune. We work very hard to create the safest environment for all our students, but in this case, we're talking about our Jewish students. Given some of the things that we have said, you are part, and I thank you for your support of an advisory group that I put together about 2 years ago to provide me guidance. External individuals provide me guidance on how we could do a better job and get a pulse from the community. And we've also continued to adapt as we learn from some of the things that we have seen, particularly in the last year. We have to strive that balance to be a place where people can express themselves freely. And I think part of our job as educators is to help those students learn how to do that passionately without being hateful and without crossing the lines. And trying to embrace people, and we wake up every day trying to do that. And I know those parents, going back to your question, want to know that we work very hard. My 25 campus presidents do that to create a safe environment, and we will continue to do that. And we'll continue to adapt and learn and improve, and hopefully we'll be part of the solution too.
So recently, there were presidents of universities who were asked to come before Congress and answer some questions. One of the questions was, is the call for genocide against Jews, is that something that's acceptable under any circumstances? Well,
first, Rabbi, as a human being, right, just person to person talking to you too, I cannot understand what on earth could justify such a call. Right. I mean, so let me begin by that just more emotional reaction, if you wish, right, about that. But having said that, clearly, an outrageous call like that can trigger Title VI, that, as you know, we need to abide with, and our code of conduct on our campuses. So, again, appalled that those phrases are being used in a campus or anyway in the city. And you and I have talked about this. I am in the education arena because I am an optimist, and I believe that universities are part of how we get to make our cities and our state and our country better places. Hate, nobody's born hating. Hate is learned behavior, right? And we need to be part of the place where we can have people unlearn that for those who have been plagued by that, and create an environment where it doesn't happen. But appalled by any such call like that.
So it's not acceptable in any way.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That's good.
So, Chancellor, you're the first educator of color and the first Latino to lead the nation's largest urban university. Has the demographics of students changed as we see a migration of African Americans to the South, out of New York City? There's a changing demographic. How has it impacted the school, the CUNY system?
So thank you for that question. One of the great things about CUNY, and it's something that I share, for example, particularly with employers, right, that are looking to tap into New York City talent that is born and bred in New York, that wants to stay in New York, is that our student demographics sort of copy almost exactly the city's demographic, right? So if the city is, I think, a little under 30% Latino, and, like 23% Asian and about 21% African American, we copy those statistics in our student body almost perfectly. Our campuses, right, are very connected to the communities they serve, right? So if you go to some of our Bronx campuses, for example, Lehman, Ostos, Bronx community, large Latino population, right, with the diversity that community has, but also, for example, a growing number now of African migrants that are coming into the Bronx. We're seeing that. You move to other parts of Brooklyn, right? You move to Kingsborough, for example, in Brooklyn, and you see them very connected to a community that has had, for example, a large Russian immigration. And so our student campuses connect with the flavors of the population, the demographics that they have on their campuses. So that's why I tell people looking for talent that if you want talent that showcases the diversity of New York, culturally, ethnically, racially, linguistically, all of those things, CUNY is the place to come tap into that talent.
Well, let's talk about that, because you've made it a key priority to build and advocate for career pipelines, creating partnerships that create a pathway for employment of graduates. Talk a little bit about that, please.
Well, again, I think we've shown, and the studies have shown, that there's no better university at moving individuals from more modest backgrounds into the middle class and above, right? That's not just a Chancellor talk. Economists have proven that. The Wall Street Journal just had the best value colleges, 6 of our colleges in the top 10, 4 of the top 5, right? So that's clear. And that's because we're very affordable and we have really great faculty and staff. The one part where we could do a better job is in having students think about careers and what they're going to do next since day one. Mm-hmm. Some students, as you know, come knowing, right? They've known all along that they want to be a nurse or they want to do, right? So hallelujah, we just put you in a path and we help you with that. Many students come and they don't know. Right? They come from families that they're the first one in their family to go to college, right? So we need to be the place where they're exposed to all kinds of career opportunities with curriculum that's updated, with a lot of hands-on practice learning, internships, apprenticeships. I am a big, I use the title, and Rabbi, forgive me for that, the patron saint of paid internships, right, for my students, because when you think about what our tuition costs, think about, I don't know how much you pay the interns there in your show, right? But let's say that you pay them a couple of $1,000s for the semester. That is almost full tuition in a CUNY campus for that semester. So when you give a student a paid internship, you're giving them experience, connections, mentors, experience, and money in their pocket, right? So everybody wins. So to all the wonderful employers, small businesses, large businesses who are looking for talent, please, the City University is ready for business to connect our great students with the needs of our employers in the city.
What I'm hearing, Chancellor, is that when many people speak about diversity, it's not just for the sake of diversity. It's also diversity coupled with merit, qualifications. I remember Herman Badillo, the first Puerto Rican congressman.
Absolutely,
right?
From the Bronx.
Right, and he was on the board of
CUNY, yeah.
Right?
He was our board chair for a while, absolutely.
And he spoke of standards. He
Yep.
said, if we want to have a good university, we got to have standards. So I hear the diversity cry in many places, but I think what's missing sometimes is we want people from diverse backgrounds, but who are qualified, who not just to pass someone through because they meet a certain superficial criterion.
Well, the good thing about that, Rabbi, is that we don't use racial criteria for our admissions, right? So the students that come to our university come based on what they have done in high school. I mean, we also have a very large adult population, right? Some individuals that maybe started college late or started college and needed to stop, right? Because life circumstances and they want to come back. I mean, you know that the New York area has 750,000 people with some college and no degree. All right. So that's talent out there that we want to tap into so they can come and contribute. So all those individuals come to CUNY with all those credentials, with all that they have learned. And our task, right, is to connect them with the right campus, with the right set of opportunities, and make sure that that individual leaves with more skills, with more perspective, with a larger worldview. Civic engagement is, I think, indispensable, right? If you think about 40% of our students were not born in the U.S., right? So we are the incubator to try to show them how our civic institutions work and have them participate. So very, very proud of that talent. I mean, we get Rhodes Scholars, and our students also receive awards left and right, competing with the best universities in the country.
So how does the series of new public and private partnerships work with that initiative to get them into a career? Because it takes money. I mean, it takes money for these programs. Yeah.
The first call I got the day after I became chancellor was from Jamie Dimon and J.P. Morgan Chase. I had known his wife, Judy, doing work together in the Bronx when I was president of Hostos. And he said, we need to find a way to for the large employers to work with CUNY. And to his credit, the pandemic came, a lot of things came that could have derailed that. He's stuck to it, and he's brought together 30 of the largest companies in the New York City Jobs Council that are partnering with CUNY, and the goal is to have 100,000 New Yorkers that are coming from modest backgrounds to move them into good jobs. So we have that partnership. We're learning from the employers the kind of needs that they have, in real time, so that we can adjust curriculum, so that we can provide a pipeline of opportunities for our students, get feedback from them about what our students need to learn. And it's been a phenomenal partnership, and we've been duplicating that. We have one called Futures in Finance for individuals in the finance sector. That's Centerbridge, Bloomberg, and Goldman Sachs. To bring more students. New York is the financial capital of the world. We want that space to be, again, reflecting the talent that we have in the city. So we're continuing to do all these things. We've been very fortunate to get support from Mayor Adams and Governor Hochul in some of these programs, and we want to continue to do more. We want every CUNY student who graduates to, if they're not going to graduate school, to be employed when they graduate, and to be, if they were employed before, because many of our students worked before as their students, but they also employed in a sector connected with what they studied, and earning more than when they came to us.
I love what you said about adjusting the curriculum to meet the demands of the marketplace. Mm-hmm. That connection is so important, because you have individuals who graduate and then they can't apply their degree.
They can't do it.
That's so important.
Chancellor, go ahead. You want to make a point, Chancellor?
The last thing I'll say about that is one of the things that we've been doing, which has been great, is tapping into alumni coming back, right? There's nothing to have someone who went through what you're going through to give you guidance, right? You tend to listen to those people more than you listen to some older folks like myself. And also, we will bring a lot of people from industry to teach a class or two, so they get to see what's happening in industry real time. It creates networks. It creates possibilities. It's been a very, very popular our CUNY Tech program in tech, and we're replicating that in other fields to make those connections very, very up to date.
It means a lot. My grandson's graduating from Farmingdale University with his criminal justice degree in January.
Wonderful.
And one of the things that he brings to the dinner table when he comes home, he says, "Pop, it's amazing having instructors who were on the job or who continue to be on the job." Of course, that means they're still employed by law enforcement at different levels and are able to bring real life experiences to the classroom and talk about issues. It just means so much to him. It makes it come alive. It's not just boring curriculum. This is real life.
Reality comes to the
reality.
classroom. Chancellor, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about safety, because you get calls, I get calls. And I remember talking to a student, not at CUNY, at another university, who said, I try to get to class and I have to walk by these encampments. And I hear all the things that are, the epithets that are hurled at me and other Jewish students. And then I go to a classroom, and sitting next to me is one of those people who was hurling the epithets. What do you say to those students who say, it's just, I'll do it on Zoom. I'm not going to come to class?
Well, so I'll say a couple of things. First is that, we're working very hard, and we issue guidance after some of the things we learned last semester, about no tolerance for situations like encampments, right? So, that's something you're not going to see in our campuses this year. We had just one situation last year, but that was one situation too many, right? So we continue to learn and adapt our conversations with our partners in the police department, who are very helpful in navigating some of these things, trying to provide the appropriate crowd control. People want to express their First Amendment's right. I would always wish that they did it in a way that was respectful, right? And it was an invitation for dialogue. But people will do it in the ways that they want to, and being passionate. So we're trying to work in ways so that when the students come in, they don't have to sort of deal with that harassing environment there. One thing also that I want to also put some perspective, Rabbi, too, is that those things are disturbing and unacceptable, and we're working with those to mitigate those things to the extent that we can, right, and to support the students on the campuses and put additional security in the spaces that we control inside the campus. Sometimes we have no control about things outside of the campuses, providing additional mental counseling support to some of the students who might be addressing a situation that you present, but again, the first, it is not an everyday occurrence, and I think it's important to sort of put that in perspective too, right? That we wish that we didn't have to do it at all, right? But it's not something that is happening on every campus on every day. And again, we continue to work with our public safety and NYPD. And the other part of the conversation too is we need to do a better job at getting students to talk to each other within the context of our classrooms, right? And that is not easy. We're actually organizing some training for faculty and staff and student leaders on difficult conversations. We're having a challenge in this country knowing how to talk to each other when we don't agree. And if you inject hate into that equation, it makes it more toxic. So we need to do a better job at equipping our students, our faculty and staff with ways to be able to have these conversations in matters that do not escalate to create harassing environments. And, parents and students have my pledge that we work every day very hard to eliminate all those situations.
One of the constructive strategies that for which you deserve much credit is your outreach to Hillel.
Yep.
The organization. So it's about building relationships. Talk about that for a moment, what you've been able to do and what you continue to do.
Well, thank you for that question. First, huge blessing for me having been the president before being chancellor of Queens College that had, at the time, it was maybe a somewhat easier time, models of engagement between the Hillel and actually the Muslim student organization on the campus, right? A lot of investment in getting students to engage, to get to know each other and to prevent things from happening. And if things did occur, to build bridges of trust to deal with things. So that gave me exposure to the Hillel organizations. They've been great partners in our campuses. I visited several of them in the last year. We're actually organizing a meeting with leaders from Muslim groups and also with the Hillel students to keep listening to what is on their minds and getting their thoughts about the things that we need to do better. Our COO, who's in charge of public safety, visited all the Hillels. He's visiting, I think, Brooklyn College in a couple of weeks to talk about security concerns with those the leaders of those Hillels. So we participated in an initiative that is nationwide, which is the Campus Climate Initiative, sponsored by Hillel. 7 of our campuses participating, doing focus group, listening, right? Some policy recommendations that we're reviewing. And again, we want to create the best environment possible for every student. We're talking about Jewish students, absolutely. And our Hillels have been important partners in that journey. And I appreciate that partnership.
So question for you, the impact, if any, on the school system, the polarization, the political and social polarization that we're experiencing as a nation over the last several years, how has that impacted the school environment, if any?
Well, I mean, I think that we have lost some ground in that capacity to talk about difficult things without escalation or without name calling or without getting crazy in social media. I mean, and again, that is a space that universities need to occupy particularly, right? Because if you think about it, it's where you go to be able to be exposed to all kinds of ideas. So we have to continue to fight that trend. And, we see it in party politics. We see it in other spaces, too. So it's not surprising that it carries over. On the other hand, right, and I wouldn't be doing this if I was not an optimist, we've been getting, particularly after last year, a lot of calls by students saying it's difficult, but we need to find a way forward, right? And that gives me hope that they're actually calling us on our responsibility to do a better job to do that. Our student leaders started a campaign, which is Our CUNY, Hate Has No Place in CUNY, that was student-driven, based on some of the things last year. Students from all faiths, from all ethnicities coming together, creating a social media campaign, fighting all kinds of hate in CUNY. So there's a lot of, and I know that unfortunately, the ugly incidents capture the attention of folks.
Yeah.
And they should be condemned, as we've done in things that have happened, right? I don't want to sugarcoat that, but I also would love that people will see, right, the spaces where people are engaging, where they're having the conversation on the campuses, where they are saying we need to find a way to move forward. And that is what makes me go to bed at night with optimism and also wake up in the morning committed, right, to creating those conditions to improve things on the proactive way, and then also to make sure that when people cross the line, that there's consequences and there's no tolerance for that.
Are you adjusting the curriculum to engage conversations around these issues?
So we've in the last 2 years, we've given about over $2 million in grants to the campuses to engage in programs of this nature. We are engaged now in one about sort of difficult conversations and constructive dialogues moving forward. So we're doing some things centrally, and the campus are doing some things individually, working at times with the mayor's office, with the DA's office, with different entities, with some nonprofits, with some interfaith organizations too. So again, a lot of work to be done, but I think people, if they engage our students in a more common environment, they will see that there's a desire. They're looking for the tools. They're looking for the guidance on how to be able to address the issues of the moment.
Yeah,
right? Face them on.
Yeah,
right?
they
We're
need
not
to
going
be
to move
equipped.
forward if we don't do that. But give me tools so I can do it in a constructive way, in a way that is not offensive, in a way that is inclusive.
We value your time. I know you have a very, very busy schedule. Just one last question.
Yep.
We appreciate your generosity in being with us. You know that there are some people who criticize God for placing thorns on roses and others who praise him for placing roses on thorns. Yeah. You're a person of faith. And it seems to me that you get up every day and you know you're going to, experience some thorns, but somehow you're able to see the roses. Just tell us about your relationship to faith.
Well, thank you for that. And first, every day, give blessings to my mom and my dad, who, with all my limitations, did a good job in instilling values in me back in Puerto Rico, where I was born. And lost my dad, almost 4 years ago, and I think about him every day. I benefited in Puerto Rico from my Jesuit education. And the motto in the school was people at the service of others. And that has been something that has guided me. It's the reason why I wanted to teach, to be a professor, to be able to be with young minds and help them in that journey. And I see my role as one of service in terms of this wonderful vehicle of social mobility that CUNY is. Wake up every morning and thank the guy upstairs for allowing me to open the eyes and be around, and ask that I can do my job with humility, with justice, and with efficiency.
Amen. Thank you, Chancellor Félix Matos Rodríguez. It's been a great honor to have you with us, and I look forward to seeing you and being with you and having the discussions to move it forward in a constructive fashion.
Especially
thank you for what you both do, and I'm a lucky man to have your support and guidance through this difficult time. So a big hug.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you, my friend. Especially in our educational institutions.
Yeah.
That's where we should have dialogue.
If we can't succeed there, we're doomed.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you again. And
thank you.
Stay tuned for more of the Rev and the Rabbi right here on 77 WABC. We'll be right back.
Reverend A.R. Bernard, Rabbi Joseph Potasnik, the Rev and the Rabbi. Talk Radio 77 WABC and the all-new WABCRadio.com.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
I think it was easier when I went to school.
You think so?
Given the climate today, well, first of all, I went to Yeshiva University. I also went to Brooklyn Law School, but the contentious spirit that is on the campuses today, the hate that is there, which comes from various sources, makes it so difficult to have a positive experience as a student.
Well, you say hate and anger because I'm a child of the 60s, right? And we had a lot of turmoil in our nation, pushing back against the Vietnam War, military-industrial complex, issues of race, class. I mean, it was all happening, and a lot of activity was on the college campuses. I mean, Kent State, front page, clashes between, law enforcement and students, the National Guard and students. But there wasn't this hate and anger. It was channeled against policy and practices and changing the systems and structures that deliver those policies and practices.
It was, students versus the government, student versus an external force.
Right.
But it wasn't student versus student.
Right.
And, and I talk to Jewish students because I'm really worried about their safety. You cannot experience a positive education as a Jew when you're confronted with chants of Hitler was right and killed the Jews and all of that, sick language. I remember telling the cardinal, if I were involved with Catholic education on a higher level, I would have Jewish programs at Catholic University. So kids would say, hey, we're welcome there. We're not going to face some of the nonsense, destructive nonsense that we have to face here.
And it's easy for you to say that because, within Catholic doctrine, they have to have certain guidelines as to how much they allow other religious belief systems to be a part of their system.
Yeah, I have friends who went to Boston College, heavily Catholic-based institution. They were treated with such respect, and we've lost that. But we've lost it everywhere.
Yeah, it's true. We're handling things differently. That's why I was glad to hear that they're adjusting the curriculum to meet the demands of the marketplace, but also the demands of what's happening in society, what students need to be armed with in terms of how they think about the issues that are driving the narratives. I think that's important, to adjust the curriculum, to engage in civil discourse within the classroom. And of course, you have to train the professors, the facilitators, the instructors as well on how to have those conversations.
So one of the problems is that conceptually you have to teach students how to think, but you also have professors in those classrooms that try to teach them what to think.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a problem.
They come in with their prejudices, their propaganda, and how is a student going to confront that? I again, talking to a student some time ago, said, if I were to write a paper about my love for Israel with this particular professor, I probably would fail because he speaks with such antipathy towards the Jewish people, towards the Zionist, world. How can I succeed? So it's also in the professors you hire.
It's true. It's true. And some people, large blocks of this country think that the educational institutions are designed to reinforce the existing culture.
Yeah.
And that's not true. When I was adjunct professor at Nya College and, of course, seminary, I would tell the students, I said, listen, you come here to learn how to think critically. I'm not going to tell you what to think. Because many of them come from church environments that, you're going to tell me how to understand theologically what I believe, and so I can be stronger to defend it. And no. You're going to learn different approaches to the subject matter. And at the end of the day, you have to choose for yourself where you're going to land. There is a theology, what we call a theology of the house. Each congregation has its particular take on the Christian faith. But in education, here in the classroom, we're going to teach you how to think, not what to think.
It's interesting. I remember back in law school where you were asked to take a position and then to take a contrary position. How would you argue, this side, that side? And that also gave you great, insight as to how to look at something from another perspective. That you don't come in and say this is the only way,
and not have to sacrifice your own perspective.
Yeah,
you can. I think you become stronger in what you believe when you know what others believe. If you know the opposing argument, I think it makes you stronger.
I think that's why when you read a judicial opinion, read the majority and the minority opinion, because very often I would look at the majority opinion, I say, that makes a lot of sense. I agree with that. Then I read the minority opinion. That makes a lot of sense. I agree with that.
Yes.
Wait a minute, I'm agreeing with majority here. But because there are things in those opinions that you can identify with, and they took, their thinking and went in a certain direction. You can say, well, I agree with this. I don't agree with that. We don't have that kind of attitude anymore. If I don't agree with you, I have to destroy you.
Yeah.
It's almost like trash talking on the court in basketball. The trash talking has become a way of behavior, acceptable way of behavior in many circles.
Yeah, it was meant to intimidate and throw your opponent, off of his game.
Right.
But then at the end of the game, we all got along. We went out to eat together, and there was friendship because we understood it was in the game itself. But it's gone beyond the game. It's become part of our lived experience now.
So isn't it a responsibility of leaders, faith leaders, political leaders, civic leaders, wherever you are in a leadership position, isn't it imperative for you to display a code of conduct that will tell people this is how you can succeed? The other is not the approach you should choose.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's important. But unfortunately, Rabbi, think about this. All right. You and I have been around a little bit, not too long, but we've been around long. A period of time, a couple of years, right? I like that, couple of years. And the term shock jock came into our language. And it was just that. It was individuals on the radio who would say shocking things. And the public loved it. And they would amass a following for their radio programs. So it speaks to who we are, human nature, aspects of who we are, that, we get attracted to the absurd, the outrageous, the outlandish. I
remember there was a program on, it was called Candid Camera.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And if you could in some way humiliate the other person, people enjoy that. It's like seeing a person fall and laugh at it. Look at that person, he just fell down. Rather than thinking, how do I help that person get up? Maybe that person is hurt. We enjoy, what's it called, Schadenfreude. It's the joy of seeing someone else in pain. It's totally unacceptable. And I don't know how we're going to correct it, but it's all the more reason why faith leaders have to do a better job in saying, this is the kind of behavior you need to emulate. What you're doing is destructive. And then you want to know why kids are, treating one another in a certain way. Maybe you ought to think twice about what you're doing.
Yeah, and we need to instruct our children on how to determine what is fantasy that we see in the movies, right, and from what's reality. Because too often they're taking the novel, the fantasy flight, which is what film is supposed to do, take us on an emotional journey, but too often at the expense of critical thinking. And our children are not able to differentiate what's real and what's not real.
Someone once said to me, we should have a sign in front of movie theaters, no adult admitted unless accompanied by a child. Right? Because it used to be the other way around, no child admitted unless accompanied by adult. And maybe that would send a better message.
Yeah.
But
he's got his hands full. It's exciting.
He wants to do it.
Yeah.
I once said to him, are you masochistic? Be Chancellor, be university. He says, I love what I do.
And that's a calling.
Yeah.
And that's what it should be. It should be a call, a summons from God to play a role said, in society.
A career is what you're paid for. A calling is what you're made for.
Ooh, I like that.
There you go. Sunday morning.
I'm going to give you credit.
CCC.
And thank you, our listeners, for joining us again here on 77 WABC for another episode of The Rev
and The Rabbi.
Till next time, God bless.
These days, it might seem hard to find a job with a future, where people are valued and appreciated. But at Chick-fil-A Supply, we don't just offer jobs. We offer purpose-driven careers. As part of Chick-fil-A's distribution network, we ensure the ingredients that make the foods customers love are reliably delivered to Chick-fil-A restaurants. If you're interested in a role in transportation, warehouse, or front office, we're interested in you. To learn more, visit cfa-supply.com.